My dear friends, I wonder if you've decided to give anything up for Lent. Imagine giving up chocolate, and then you go to a meal. Difficult to do these days, but imagine you go for a meal with someone, and the after-dinner mints get passed around, and the host says, "Go on, just one. It doesn't make that much difference." I hate to tell you, but your host is Satan. What we have here is an example of social pressure, and this is Satan, for this is what Jesus is resisting. Consider that Satan is described by Jesus as being the prince of this world. You could say that he holds sway over the court of public opinion. Now, sometimes the pressures of public opinion can be severe. If you stick out, then the mob can notice you. It can be much safer to go with the flow than to keep your head down. Now, Jesus, in this morning's passage, is criticizing Peter for confusing the things of God and the things of men. And it's the latter, the social realm, where the Satan holds sway. Now, social pressure has ways of disguising itself, and it's often couched in the language of should and ought. Perhaps you should be ashamed of yourself. I want to suggest that we need to exercise a godly suspicion when this language is used. Sometimes what is being recommended with a should or an ought is of God. For example, you should pray more, but sometimes it isn't. Now, I'd like to propose a way of discriminating between when the shoulds are good and when they are otherwise from somewhere else. And the simple question is this: can the should be rephrased in terms of the great commandments? The first and greatest commandment is to love God with all our heart, all our soul, all our mind, and all our strength. This comes first, and is the most important command. I see it as intimately bound up with vocation, the sense of who we are before God and who God is calling us to become. And the second command is like, namely this: we must love our neighbours as ourselves. In other words, we are called to share the love of God with each other, to look after each other and care for each other, to nurture each other and to forgive each other, so that all might enjoy the life that God intends for us. Now let me give you two examples which may make things clearer. Imagine a musician, say a teenager, being exhorted to practice his instrument by his parents. Perhaps it was an expensive instrument, and the parents say, "We've spent so much on your music lessons, you should be doing more with it." Contrast this with the thought, "I have a gift from God, and it fills me with joy to play my instrument. I am more myself when I am playing than when I'm not." Now, both forms of language might lead to the teenager playing the instrument, but only one is inspired by love. The second example. Imagine, say, a middle sibling, a middle daughter, who has taken on the principal burden of caring for an elderly aunt, despite having those other siblings equally connected. And the request comes in to go and visit to do her shopping. Is this a should? You ought to go and do it, because if you don't, nobody else will. Or is it actually, I love my Aunt Nellie, I enjoy seeing her, and I don't want her to experience hardship? If we can rephrase the ought into something that allows us to experience the joy of loving someone else, the joy of caring for someone else, enabling them to live and to flourish, then it is godly. But if not, it's just social pressure, and worse, it can open up scope for being abused. My point is this: if we can't rephrase a should or an ought into something which inspires and enables life, then it's simply social pressure, and that is satanic. So this is the challenge, to rephrase our shoulds and our oughts into the language of love. Now, in part, this is about examining our motivations and being honest with ourselves. Am I pursuing this course of action because it is loving, or am I simply giving in to being pestered, or to gain approval, or because I'm afraid of disapproval? The core questions to explore are, is this enabling me to become the person that God is loving me into being? Is this enabling me to share the love of God with someone that I love? And then, if we're really saintly, can the boundaries of my loving be broken down just a little bit more, so that I can love more widely than I have done as yet. Jesus had a specific vocation, a claim upon him from the Father which he never allowed to break. That's why he was without sin. Sin is simply anything which breaks our relationship with the Father, anything which disrupts our obedience to the first commandment. And Jesus never allowed that relationship to be broken. Jesus was true to his vocation to the bitter end. He could have gained the whole world, but the world would not have been enough. In the same way, each time that we give in to social pressure, we lose a little bit of our souls. And what does it profit us if we gain the whole world, but lose our own souls? Jesus followed his vocation even unto the cross. And he did this because he was motivated entirely by love. Not because he was swayed by thoughts of what he should do or what he ought to do, but simply because he loved the Father and because he loved us. Jesus came to set us free, to become children of God, free to love in our turn. What this means is that we allow God to take charge of our lives, that we live as his children, as heirs of God, and fellow heirs with Christ. And then, if we walk in his path, we can take up our cross and follow him. And then we can share in his ultimate victory and look forward to enjoying a risen life with him. Until we meet again. Amen.